the first Red Bull domino might be about to fall. Adrian Newey is set to leave Red Bull.
Supposedly. But when you get BBC and Autosport reporting this, then there must be an element of truth to it.
Supposedly, the news broke a couple of hours ago when Motor and Sport ran a piece saying that Adrian Newey was set to leave on the grounds that he was no longer happy with the situation over at Red Bull and instead might be looking to leave at the end of the season. Now, before you start to think that, oh, he's going to be at Ferrari next year, well, Adrian Newey, like many other technical and administrative people at certain teams, would have a gardening leave clause on there, meaning that they can't start work until about a year has passed, around about 12 months. So it probably would mean that Ferrari won't really be influenced in terms of the 2026 car, and that there might be some situation where it might be 2027. That is if he's even going to Ferrari, because there are plenty of teams out there that will want to splash the cash when it comes to hiring the likes of Newey. Wherever he goes, it'll probably be the final team that he actually ends up at, considering that he is now in his mid-60s and probably might want to do other things as well. One of the most important things, wherever he decides to go, if this is true that he is leaving Red Bull after 19 seasons, is that he'll want creative freedom. And that is something that is making me think that maybe the Aston Martin docket might be something he might be appealed toward going back to. Because remember, the Valkyrie of Aston Martin, he was very involved in it and very much adored being part of that project. So getting a chance to be reunited with that project and getting the chance to revisit it as it now goes into the World Endurance Championship for 2025, that could be a very interesting situation. And also, there is a question of money, because supposedly Adrian Newey is paid about $10 million a year to work for Red Bull and their hypercar project of the RB17, which he's now expected to be withdrawing from and phasing himself out of, at least in terms of working on the daily, by the end of this year, and then maybe move on to other things. But you just get the feeling that maybe, and this has been something that's reported in the Motor and Sport piece, that maybe the whole Christian Horner situation that I've really not covered on this channel for obvious reasons, I don't really want to deal in that kind of speculation, is that maybe he's had enough, that he's just taken a step back and gone, this isn't really a work environment I want to be part of, and also he's done enough. He's proved himself really to be at the peak of his abilities, that he's managed to do the double with Max and Red Bull. What else is there left to do except just get more titles? Now he's done the clean sweep as well with Checo last year. That's it. You'd just be repeating yourself. So why don't you go and try and start up a brand new challenge? That's exactly what he did when he went to Red Bull for 2007. That was pretty much one of the main motivators after doing all of the jobs at McLaren and then that relationship breaking down and then doing the deed at Williams and getting championships and then that relationship broke down. Just again, this is why I think this probably has some legs, is because this is yet another working relationship that has probably broken down. And probably has got something to do with the team principle. Because there's a lot of talk about Christian Horner at the moment that all the stuff that he's trying to do with racing bulls, with Red Bull powertrains, it's all about trying to grab power, total control, really trying to establish himself as the head honcho of Red Bull racing. But yet there's something stopping him from doing that, and that's something that Toto Wolff has. And that is because he is a major shareholder of Mercedes. He owns a third of it, and it's effectively, based on the valuation of Mercedes, a billionaire. That is not something that Christian Horner has. He is currently an employee of Red Bull GmbH, and right now, let's just say that the relationship between he and Mintzlaff, who is the CEO of Red Bull, it's not exactly that great. This is something probably that behind the scenes, Adrian Newey, if this is true, again, this has all been reported, it's not been finally confirmed from the man himself, it just might be something he no longer wants to really associate himself with. He's been seen in Bologna a couple of times, which is in Italy, and maybe this might be a situation where Ferrari wants to establish a super team. With Frederic Vasseur there, John Elkann, the chairman of Ferrari, giving the green light to spend as much money as possible in securing Lewis Hamilton's services. They then get the Hewlett-Packard deal, which reportedly is worth $100 million a year. This is almost as big as the Oracle deal that Red Bull has. And yes, of course, you might be thinking, oh, it's Scuderia Ferrari HP, that's such a shame. Well, it's better than Scuderia Ferrari Mission Winnow, or it's actually Win Now. Do you get it? Mission Win Right Now. But either way, I don't want that blue spodge on there. That looks really garish. I hope that's not the case. But either way, we're talking about Adrian Newey. Ferrari seems like the best bet because when you look back through his entire career, he's worked for Leighton House, which is where he started his career. He then moved over to Williams. He then moved over to McLaren. And then he moved to Red Bull. A lot of the major teams he's worked with. The only big team that he hasn't worked with has been Ferrari. And he's flirted with the idea a few times throughout his entire tenure in Formula One. Now Frederick Vasseur has the cash and the authority and the jurisdiction from the chairman himself to try and get as many people as possible to make a super team. He's going to make it work. Lewis Hamilton has gone there, and he just about missed the chance to work with Newey at McLaren. And Hamilton's been quite coy about the situation, saying that his move makes anything possible within the world of Formula One, and that you should pay attention over the next few months as to what happens, the next 6 months in particular. What's been going on? Is this Lewis Hamilton being quite coy, or is this something else? Is this something saying that something that he missed out to do at McLaren is something he gets to do at Ferrari at the end of his career? Much like with Adrian Newey, at the end of his career. And of course, John Elkann, much like he would have done with Lewis Hamilton, is looking at the superstar of technical directorship and go, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Whether or not it means that he gets to be part of the hypercar project with Ferrari for World Endurance, then that might be the case. He gets to design some hypercars. He might get to design a Ferrari of his own. That is a really big honor within the world of motoring. Getting to design your own Ferrari? Wow! Christian Horner is probably in a very tenuous position. Adrian Newey is someone that's really worked with the team for a long time, and they've worked together well, but now it's sort of falling apart, much like it did at Williams and at McLaren. And this does have a knock-on effect as well. All the rumours about Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull, those rumours could easily become a reality, because the whole thing with Verstappen is that he likes continuity. And even though Red Bull has said just now that they're unaware of any communications from Adrian Newey as to wanting to leave, the fact that it has been picked up by the major players in terms of F1 journalism, such as BBC Sport and Andrew Benson, and of course Autosport, means there must be an element of truth to that Adrian Newey might be making this decision on his own. And if that is true, then Max Verstappen will be looking at that and go, hey, that's the guy who designs my car what goes really well and fast. I don't like the looks of that. And even though Adrian Newey has stepped back from designing the car entirely, it's not like he designs every single nut and bolt that goes onto that car. He does have a team working around him, and if he were to leave, then there probably would be people to fill in the gap. But the main guy who is in charge, the right top of that chain, will be gone and off to somewhere else. This is really big news. It's been something that's been rumbling about over the last couple of months after the whole situation with Christian Horner. Who in the hierarchy of Red Bull would leave? Would they decide to go on their own, or would they be pushed out in the wake of Christian Horner being backed into a corner and needing to reassert his power? This is a really, really delicate situation here, my friend. That this is Adrian Newey, a guy who's the most decorated Formula One technical director and designer in its history. So many titles, both drivers and constructors. Wherever he goes, this is going to dictate what happens in terms of 2026. If a team wants to grab his services and make it count for 2026, then they have to secure his services right now or in the next few months. Otherwise, it won't be worth it, and they'd have to wait until 2027. Maybe Adrian might want to retire. Maybe just focus on one thing instead of designing a Formula One car from scratch. There are so many unknowns here right now. It's really, really up in the air. But again, this is not something that has been reported by some sketchy source. This is something that's coming out of major journalists. This is something to really pay attention to. Because if this is true, then this is the first major pillar of Red Bull, one of the most successful teams currently in Formula One, and who knows where it might go. As we saw with Ferrari and we saw with Mercedes, the brain drain is real. And if this is true, then this drain will be cataclysmically huge, because who's to say that people that worked with Adrian might go with him on their own volition, of course, because I'm pretty sure that Red Bull has contracts saying you can't take certain personnel without them wanting to go as well. You don't know. But the point is, though, is that Adrian Newey leaving, it does really throw the driver market into sharp relief. Sure, he's not a driver, but with that $10 million a year pay packet, supposedly, he's being paid than quite a lot of drivers on the F1 grid currently. Who knows? Maybe Audi might want to take a look at him. but it's just so intriguing. Maybe McLaren might want him. I don't know. There's no real telling and no real sign where he's going to go, but most fingers are pointing at Ferrari because the ambition there is real, with Lewis Hamilton going there seemingly for as long as he wants to be in Formula One, and he can get that world title, that 8th one. But then you see Toto Wolff being quite coy in China. Maybe they might have secured his services. You lose one big star and you gain another, but then you get rid of James Allison, who you brought on board for the W15, which has turned out not to be so good, when you could have kept Mike Elliott with the W14, where it turned out to have some potential. And if you just developed it that little bit more, as Adrian Newey has shown with the RB20, then it could be pretty good. Mercedes, they're just throwing things at the problem, just constantly. But the fact that Red Bull have not come out and straight up denied it, they've just said they are unaware, then this could be something that Adrian's doing on his own. This has happened in the past with him. He's not been content at a team, and he decides to go and try his luck with somewhere else. That's just part of the course. There's always the challenge. When things get stale and get samey, you want to just have a fresh take on things. Sure, it might mean that he has to move to Italy, but, getting to design a Ferrari car, even if it turns out not to be the best car that Adrian Newey's designed, it's a Ferrari. That's the thing that always drives people to go and work in Italy. It's Ferrari, and it's the only major team that Adrian Newey has not worked for. That is a huge thing to tick off his bucket list, to get to design a car for the Scuderia, and Lewis Hamilton is the one to drive it, even if it's only in part for 2026. And we don't know, even if he has to do the gardening leave thing. Maybe he might come up with some negotiation tactic that means that he can just go work with Ferrari straight away. Maybe if they are compensated Red Bull properly, then they might just go, okay, fine, you can go. I know it's not a driver, it's not exactly sexy, it's not exactly iconic, but Adrian Newey is the only technical director that has star power. Maybe you could say that James Allison has that too, because he did work at Ferrari at one time, but Newey is the guy. And if that guy has decided, I want to go and work somewhere else, or I've had enough of you, Christian, things need to change, then this is going to spark questions with Christian Horner's empire at Red Bull in of itself, and whether or not Max Verstappen might leave. And again, those rumours about Max going somewhere else, that started to turn again, even though we all thought it probably wouldn't happen. Now that Newey might be about to leave, well, that's the guy who's designed the car that has given Max Verstappen over 50 wins in Formula One. Yeah, where he goes, really telling. But again, this could be continuously developing. More news could be had by the time I upload this video. I might have to go up the ladder again, but I'll do it for you, especially if you subscribe to this channel for further updates. And also, maybe pay attention to the whole idea of why Max Verstappen is such an obsession for Toto Wolff. As I detail in this video, you can go and watch next. Ooh.